What's going on, world? What's cracking, gang? What's the deal? It's everybody's favorite Unk, and today it's time for action.
Now is the time for action.
That's right, it's time for action. We are taking a look at the Valaverse Action Force Series 3.1 Gemini. Now, it's been a hot minute since I looked at some Action Force or G.I. Joe classified stuff on the channel, and I have been really looking forward to not only the upgrade kits, but also the Gemini in Series 3.1 and the Warpath Eclipse. I still got to get that one. That one's on the list. But today we're taking a look at Gemini, man. And I was going to take a look at the upgrade kit for Pandora as well. You can see that one in the background back there. Let me know if you want to see that in the comments below. I'm probably going to make a separate video for it because I didn't want to cram it all into this one, but really enjoying that pack as well. But before we hop into it, man, you guys know that I always like to ask a customary question to kind of boost engagement with the video and kind of get you guys a little bit more interactive here on the channel. So the question for today is, do you guys mix your G.I. Joe classified figures and your Valaverse Action Force figures? For me, it's a yes. I have no nostalgic connection to any of these characters. Didn't grow up watching G.I. Joe at all. So for me, you know, everything that I do on my displays and in my shelves for these guys and gals is headcanon. So leave that in the comments below. Do you guys mix and match? Do you keep them separate? Let's have a discussion. All right, now before we hop into getting old Gemini out of the box, we're gonna take a look at the box art. And of course, it's got that nice simple window packaging on the front. You got Action Force right there down low and the Gemini name with the Valaverse logo on the right. On the back, you got a picture of the actual figure, which is pretty cool. And you got her file card there that you can kind of cut out and save. If you want, you can pause the video right now and look at that. You also got your action points down low, and we know what the action points are for now, finally, which is really cool. On the right side of the box, you got a comic drawing of Gemini, and I really like the art style, actually, that this is drawn in. Also, the style that the Pandora box is drawn in. But that's another video for another day. And of course, you got Action Force on the other side of the box. But let's go ahead and crack this girl out the box and take a closer look. You feel me? All right, guys, now fresh out of the box, and she is looking mean. She is looking clean, man. And the first thing I always look at is the head sculpt. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, when I first saw the pictures of this girl, I was a little trepidatious, for lack of a better term, about the head sculpt because it looked like it was just a little butch, for lack of a better term. I don't want to use that word, but it looked a little butch to me. But man, I'll tell you, man, getting this thing in person, it just looks so good, man. It looks a lot better than I thought it was going to look. She just looks menacing. She looks ready to go. And honestly, man, I mean, you know, don't quote me here, but I think she could take on Pandora with that face right there because she looks scary, man. So the face sculpt looks really good, actually. And I do like the pigtails. They're not as annoying as I thought they were going to be. They're very pliable. You can move them around pretty easily. They do get out of the way pretty well. Everything is painted well on the face, from the lipstick to the eyeshadow, man. And she just looks menacing, man. She honestly looks like she could like transform into like, you know, like a wolf or something crazy like that, man. That's some more headcanon for you. But yeah, man, the face is painted very well. The vest, the tactical vest that she's wearing, I really like this one. It's got that carabiner on it with that nice, you know, that nice teal to kind of pop a little bit on the carabiner, man. That looks really cool, and it's painted really well on that vest as well. Got the Action Force logo in the middle of her chest, and whatever her little logo is on her right side of her chest, because if you turn it around on her neck, she's got a little tribal tattoo with that same design. I am not a fan of tribal tattoos at all. But this one looks good. It's done nicely, man. It's really simple. You know, all the normal bells and whistles. She's got her little holster on the side of her leg. I like the matte green color of the pants, man. I'm getting like Tomb Raider vibes. Tomb Raider vibes with the color palette on this one. Lara Croft. Give us a Lara Croft figure, man. But this is really cool, man. So yeah, as far as aesthetic, it doesn't look too bad. There are some spots where the paint apps could be a little bit better. Particularly where the cami is at on her shoulder straps. It's not really painted the best. Some of the hands, which we'll get into when we go over the accessories, some of the hands don't look like they're painted the best. But those are minor gripes, man. Things you really got to look to find. Of course, the upper body is reused from Pandora. It's that same tank top body from Pandora. But she has her own style, her own flavor, so to speak, man. She has her own vibe, and that face sculpt really brings out her own attitude, man. The bottoms are reused, of course, from Kill Switch and from Steel Brigade, I believe, as well. I think Eclipse has the same bottoms. But you know, military line, you're gonna get that, man. But yeah, so overall, in the aesthetic department, she's pretty good, man. She's pretty good. She's passable, so I give it a thumbs up. All right, now hopping into accessories, man, and you get a litany of accessories like you always do with Action Force products, man. Valaverse Action Force, that is. You get your Action Force stand, which is standard with these releases. You also get the knife that every single one of the female characters that I have so far come with. I don't have any of the males, but the females all come with a knife. You get their own unique gun, which is pretty cool, man. I don't know anything about guns, so don't hold my feet to the fire, but this gun looks really, really cool. And their guns are always very sturdy, man, very sturdy. You try to bend it, you won't be able to bend it. And that's one thing they have over Hasbro and the Joes, is that these guns are not gonna get warped in the packaging, man. The pistol's cool as well. She's got a litany of hands also. She's got open hands to kind of hold up her gun when she's toting it around. She's got the gripping hands to kind of wield her knife. She's also got the trigger fingers. And I could be wrong about this one too, guys. I don't collect Action Force a lot, but I could be wrong about this one too. I think she is the first female figure that comes with a pair of fists. And I think that's because she's supposed to be modeled after a UFC cage fighter. I can't remember exactly. She comes with a pair of fists. That's pretty cool. And if you don't want to count the holster and, you know, the waistband, man, the flat jacket or whatever you want to call it that they wear, the tactical vest, man, I really like hers a lot. It just pops, man, and it looks different. This is one thing that separates that reuse from other figures, man, is that this flak jacket, tactical vest, whatever you want to call it, I love it, man. So, you know, of course the accessories get a thumbs up, you know, not too much, not too little, just right. I like it. Alright guys, now if you watch the channel, you know I'm not a scientist. I do not design action figures, but I will put her in some poses, goddammit, and see what she can do. And it's the typical Valaverse Action Force articulation. Nothing over the moon, nothing that's going to be disappointing. There are some things that I'm not the biggest fan about when it comes to this style of articulation, and it goes for Joe's as well. The big thing for me, and I know this is a minor gripe, the big thing for me is two things. I wish it had toe articulation so you can get them in that kneeling pose, because you're kneeling a lot when you're doing army stuff, right? Like you're kneeling and shooting your gun. You're kneeling, you're army crawling, stuff like that. So I wish they had toe articulation, but that's something I know we're never going to get because that's not the style of articulation with these figures. And I also wish that the head would be on a double ball peg. I'm not a big fan of the hinge, but I will say, for a figure that uses a hinge, the Action Force figures are pretty good because you can get pretty good tilt and attitude on her head with that hinge. That's my only real gripe with those hinges, and Marvel Legends is guilty of this too, where you can't get a lot of attitude because you can only look up and down. But this figure can actually give you a little bit of attitude, so I do like that. It's not that big of a deal, but just small little things like that. I'm not a fan of the drop down hips, never have been. The WWE Ultimates are using them now too, and I feel like over time those just tend to get loose. I will say all the other Action Force figures I have, they are holding real nice and tight. And speaking of being nice and tight, this one is tight out of the package, but I will say I feel like maybe they're listening to some of the complaints, because the plastic is definitely still hard and it's definitely very, very tight out of the box. But I was able to switch out like the hands and stuff like that without really having to heat it up that much. I heated the figure up one time to change one of the hands out, and after that I didn't have to heat it up at all anymore. When I was going through the articulation on the figure, I didn't heat it up at all, and it was kind of risky and I was kind of scared, but it moved pretty smooth in comparison to the other Action Force figures being too tight. But hey, I'd always rather have it be too tight than too loose. So that's good. So I'm not a fan of the drop down hips, but if your figure's going to retain that quality because of the type of plastic you're using and because of whatever the factory's doing to make sure that it keeps that integrity, I'm fine with that. And speaking from history, I've never been a huge fan of the drop down hips in other lines. So let's see if, you know, time will tell with Action Force if the drop down hips are good for those or not. But other than that, man, you can get her into every single pose that you want. As you can see here, man, full splits, generous ankle pivot and rocker, double jointed elbows, hinged wrists vertically and horizontally, depending on which hand you put on her. The ball joint at the waist and the ball joint at the diaphragm. That is my favorite type of articulation. I love it when action figures use that. I hate when they don't use that. I think that's the best way, the optimal way to get the most out of your ab crunch. And overall, man, she's just fun as hell to pose, man. All of the Action Force figures I own are fun as hell to pose, man. I really am impressed that you can switch the hands in and out and pop the head on and off without having to heat it up every time, because my kill switch and one of the female troopers I have, I still have to heat that thing up every time I change anything on it. And I've had those figures for at least 6 months now. So I like the improvements that they're making, man. It seems like, you know, they're listening a little bit, and that's good. That's good. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it's placebo effect. Maybe it's just mine. But leave it in the comments below, guys. Did you have an easier time switching those wrists and whatnot? Because mine were a lot easier than my other figures. But yeah, overall, man, articulation is great. You know what you're getting. So thumbs up in that department as well. And now we're gonna do some size comparisons, man. We're gonna do some size comparisons here. We've got her up against a bunch of Lady J's that I kit bashed, man. And this is what I'm saying, you can mix Action Force and G.I. Joe. Who says you can't, man? Who says you can't? I think it looks damn good. And this is a perfect example. But here she is with a bunch of Lady J's that I kit bashed. Then we're gonna put her up here with some of her other Series 3 counterparts. We've got her here with the Bloody Pandora variant, and we've got her with Kill Switch. Still loving both of these figures so much. She looks good with these girls. She fits right in with the line. Then I'm gonna put her up against some Joes. We've got Rock and Roll, you got Zorana, you've got your boy Rakondo with the greatest mustache of all time, looking real good with the Joes too. And I want to put her up against some other ladies, man. I'm going to put her up against the WWE Elite Nikki Bella. That's a morphed Cammy right there from the Power Rangers Lightning Collection with the Street Fighter collab. And we've got her up against Sakura Harano from Naruto as well. She looks good with those ladies right there too. And just for one more comparison, you can't forget Kakarot. We've got her up against Kakarot, we've got her up against the Jada Toys Ryu, and we've also got her up against an articulated icon from Foosh. All right, guys, now getting into final thoughts, man. I'm gonna tell you, man, this one's another hit. I do not really collect a whole lot of Action Force, a whole lot of G.I. Joe, but I do love both lines, and I do have room for them always in my collection. This girl exceeded my expectations. I kind of just got her because I don't have Eclipse yet or the Warpath Eclipse, so I felt like there was a hole in my Action Force ladies collection, and I needed to add her to it. But man, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm having so much fun with this thing, and my main thing with this line and with G.I. Joe Classified is kit bashing. So even if I don't like a figure, I'm gonna pull it apart. I'm gonna pop and swap. I'm gonna make my own, my own headcanon, all that good stuff, man. So, I mean, the only gripes I can think about with this figure to me are some of the paint apps are a little sloppy. Some of the paint apps are a little sloppy, and I can't overlook that. I do not like the fact that it doesn't have toe articulation, but like I said, I know that's something that I don't think Bobby Vala is ever gonna add toe articulation to his figures, but I just wish that they had toe articulation. The drop down hips, time will tell. Time will tell with those. But other than that, man, this thing over exceeded my expectations, man. The articulation, besides my little gripes, is very serviceable. You can get her into any pose you like. And even though the paint apps are a little sloppy in parts, the colors just pop on this thing. She looks gorgeous. The head sculpt is done masterfully. And once again, I said this before in my, closer look at the Pandora when I first got her. You can just tell this figure is made with love, man. You can tell this figure was made by people who care about the art of action figures, man. Like this is a piece of art, man. And all of the Action Force figures I have are a piece of art. So if I was going to give this one a number grade on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to go ahead, man. I'm going to go ahead and give Gemini an 8 out of 10. She's fantastic. And if you collect military lines, any military lines, I think there's plenty of room for her and any other Action Force in your collection. But what do you guys think if you have this figure, man? If you don't have it or you're planning on picking it up, make sure you leave all that in the comments down below. I really appreciate you guys watching till the end. That's the best way to support the channel. Be sure to throw me a sub and a like if I tickled your fancy in this one. If you didn't like the video, dislike the video, do whatever you want. Just know at the end of the day, I always appreciate you watching. And until next time, peace.